Hey everyone, Teo here. In today's video, I'm reviewing the ASUS Zenbook Pro Duo 14, model number UX8402. This video is going to be quite long, so if you want to save time, you can check out the text review that I have already written on my blog. The link is in the video description below. And my review will be from the perspective of a visual content creator, someone who does graphic design, digital art, edits photos and videos. First of all, a disclaimer, this is a review unit on loan from ASUS Singapore. The specifications for this review unit are listed above. In this video, I just want to present to you my findings and you can decide whether or not this is worth the money. Here in Singapore, the model with the 12th Gen Intel Core i7 processor, 16 gigs of RAM, 1TB storage and 2 years warranty is priced at 3,699 Singapore dollars. And these are the prices for other configurations that I found online. Alright, let me give you the bottom line up front. The main selling point for this laptop is obviously the dual display setup, which is great for multitasking and for work. At the time of making this video, ASUS actually has two 14-inch Zenbook dual laptops. This is the Pro model. The other one is the non-Pro model with model number UX8402. So the Pro model uses a 14.5-inch OLED display with a secondary LCD, which is half the height. The other model, the non-Pro model, uses LCD display and has different specifications. In terms of performance, this is definitely more than powerful enough for visual content creators with tight deadlines and busy work schedules. This OLED display has good colors, good contrast, 100% DCI-P3 color gamut support, 120 Hz, sharp visuals with no pixelation. With Adobe Lightroom, the thumbnails for the RAWs can generate really quickly, and I was able to edit 4K 50 FPS videos with DaVinci Resolve without having to use proxies. The NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3050 Ti graphics card with 4 gigs of RAM is good for some gaming as well. I was able to get at least 45 frames per second with Red Dead Redemption 2 at 1080p resolution. This laptop is not without downsides, and some of the downsides are the touchpad is located on the right side, so this laptop is not ideal for left-handed users. The touchpad does not use haptic feedback and you cannot press down on the touchpad, so there are actually physical buttons for the left and right click, and I haven't used something like this for a very long time, so it's kind of awkward to use this. The secondary display is called the ScreenPad Plus and it crashes maybe once a day for me. Thankfully, when it crashes, it will restart by itself and the windows will go back to their original locations. Another downside is the battery life is just 5 hours with non-gaming usage, which is not surprising considering how powerful this laptop is and how much power it needs. I have reviewed last year's model, which is the 15-inch Zenbook Pro Dual, and this year's model, the 14-inch, provides way more value. The display size may be smaller, but this is much lighter. This is 1.75 kg versus the 2.34 kg of the 15-inch, and not just that, this is 3,700 Singapore dollars versus the 15-inch, which is 5,000 Singapore dollars, with the main difference for me being the graphics card. With the 15-inch, I was able to play Red Dead Redemption at 50 frames per second and above. With this laptop, it's 45 frames and above, so in terms of user experience, it's not very different compared to last year's 15-inch model. The savings of 1,300 Singapore dollars is very significant though. Let's take a look at the items included in the box. This is a 180-watt charger, which is smaller than the surface area of this phone that I have here, but 2.5 times thicker. That's the power cable, warranty info, quick start guide, ASUS Pen 2. This pen uses Microsoft Pen Protocol 2.0 and supports up to slightly over 4,000 levels of pressure sensitivity. The model number is SA203H. And these are collapsible foldable feet you can attach to the bottom of the laptop. This is called the ASUS Ergo Lift Stand. And lastly, there is a slim carrying case which is quite thin. The padding is not going to give you drop protection. This, by the way, is the pen holder. So this is just for you to separate the laptop and other items in your bag. Let's look at the design of this laptop. The weight is up to 1.75 kg, so different models will have slightly different weight. On the lid, there is a shiny logo, and there is this very subtle circular pattern that spreads out from the logo. The surface is matte textured, and this is quite susceptible to fingerprints, which can be wiped off fairly easily. On the back, we have 3 big holes for the fan exhaust, a full-size HDMI port, version 2.1, micro SD card, and a port for the power adapter. The back plate is held by Torx T5 screws. From what I've read, you can replace the SSD but not the RAM. There are downward facing speakers. Audio quality is loud and clear. Audio quality is maybe 4 out of 5 stars for me. This is one piece of long hard rubber feet, and the other one is a rectangular design. Unfortunately, this feet, they don't have good grip on the table. It's not like the laptop is slippery on the table, it's just that the grip is not as good compared to those softer rubber feet. The back is matte textured, and this is even more susceptible to fingerprints compared to the lid. So these are the tiny holes for air intake. This part of the feet is actually lower, so that when you place the laptop on the table, there is a gap here for the air to enter beneath to go into the small holes here. I highly recommend you use the included foldable feet to prop up the laptop for better airflow. So this new hinge design to me is a downgrade compared to last year's model, the 15-inch model, because when you open the lid, it will prop up the secondary display, but it doesn't prop up the laptop. The 15-inch actually will push the bottom up, so that is a better design, obviously. On the left side of the laptop, there are 3 more holes for fan exhaust, a 3.5mm audio jack. The build quality for the exterior is excellent. This is very hard, very tough, and the hinge looks quite strong. On the right side, there is the battery and charging indicator, 2 Thunderbolt 4, USB-C ports, USB-A 3.2. This is not a laptop I can open easily with one hand because of the stiff hinge and the lack of grip beneath the laptop. So face unlock works pretty effectively and fast. This is a good looking design, and the finishing on all the edges, the corners are really nice. Due to the screen pad plus taking up so much space here, the keyboard is pushed forward. So it's best to use this laptop on a table where you have space here to rest your palm. If you use this on your lap, it would mean you have to push the keyboard further away. So it could be awkward if you use this on your lap. Anyway, I don't advise using this on your lap because this laptop can get rather warm even when you are doing non-processor texting work. The keyboard has good layout and it's backlit. The function shortcut buttons are useful. The keys have good travel and feedback, so my overall typing experience is very positive. The touchpad is located on the right side, so this is not ideal for left-handed users. There are left and right physical buttons for the left and right clicks because you cannot press down on the touchpad. If you're used to touchpads where you can press down or touchpads with haptic feedback, it's going to take some time to get used to this old school style touchpad. There are 2 shortcut buttons here for Screen Pad Plus. This button on the left allows you to move the window from one display to the other. The other button allows you to turn on or off or hide Screen Pad Plus. The main display is a 14.5-inch OLED display with 120Hz refresh rate. The resolution is 2880 by 1800. The aspect ratio is 16:10. Visuals are very sharp with no noticeable pixelation. Color support is 100% DCI-P3. Contrast ratio is 1 to 1 million. So the colors on this display just look fantastic out of the box. And it's very enjoyable to edit photos and videos on this display. This is me just browsing through some of the downloaded wallpapers. And the contrast with OLED is definitely noticeably better compared to LCD. And the maximum brightness of this display is up to 550 nits. The screen is touch screen, so you can use finger gestures, and this is a glossy display which is quite reflective. And the viewing angles are terrific, so there is minimal to no color shift when viewing from extreme angles, except for the drop in brightness at certain angles. One downside to this OLED display is there is this subtle green texture on the display which may be noticeable when the background is white or it's bright, so I can actually see the green texture in this white area here and also in this light gray area here. But you probably can't see it in this video because my camera cannot pick that up. And that green texture may present some issues when it comes to editing photos and videos. So, for example, with this photo, I can see the green texture here in the white area. And this white area is just cardboard. So, is this cardboard textured because it's textured, or is it due to the green texture of the OLED display? Someone told me the green texture is due to the digitizer beneath the OLED display, which is why this OLED display can support the pen. I don't really have any major issues with the green texture. I know it's there and I can ignore it. However, with certain photos, sometimes the green texture can be more obvious. The secondary display is IPS LCD and has a resolution of 2880 by 864. Refresh rate is 120 Hz. The height is about half the height of the main display. And out of the box, I can see the colors on both displays. They almost match, even though this is OLED and this is LCD. For the LCD, the surface is matte textured instead of glossy. This LCD supports 100% sRGB color gamut and has a maximum brightness of 400 nits. There is also one downside to the LCD. The matte textured surface actually introduces some color noise to the image quality. Again, my camera is probably not going to be able to pick that up. It's actually more noticeable here in this orange area. But again, it's a very minor issue. You can draw on the LCD display, it's just that the pen tip is quite slippery, even on this matte textured surface. Initial activation force with the pen is low. There is slight diagonal line wobble with the pen though, so that's going to affect drawing accuracy. Cursor tracking is quite accurate. I don't see any misalignment with the pen tip and the cursor. So it's just the diagonal line wobble or jitter and how slippery the pen tip is on the surface that affects drawing. For writing, it works great. You can write and draw on the OLED display as well, but this thing will wobble, so it's not ideal. Let's look at the software features ASUS has added to help you multitask across these two displays. So this is the control bar for ScreenPad Plus, and here you can customize the bar, you can customize the shortcuts here. You can also position the bar from left to the right side of the display, or collapse this into a small button, or auto hide the bar. I prefer to have the ScreenPad control center in this tiny button located on the right side, and usually when I use it, it's to adjust the brightness of the LCD. The next software feature will help you position windows on either display very precisely. For this feature, you can use your finger or the mouse cursor, so just tap and hold on the title bar here, and this pop-up will appear. So now you can position this window on the main display 1 or on the secondary display 2, or maximize this window. Now I'm going to use the cursor instead so that my finger doesn't block the visuals. So if you position it on the main display, you can move it down slightly, move your finger down slightly, and now you have the option to place that window into any of these smaller windows. So So these are the different locations you can place the window. And with the secondary display, which is the ScreenPad Plus, again you can move your finger down to this little thing button here, and you can place the window into any of these highlighted boxes. I find this feature to be very useful because it can help you place windows into position very quickly and precisely. So let me move another window here in this location. Just tap and move it down into position. Let's move this web page down into the bottom right side. And now I can maybe edit my photos and transfer files here, and also look at my web page. If you just want to move this window down here, you can use this button here, or you can use the shortcut again to do a quick flick and it would move down here. But to move this back up, you can't just flick down, you have to minimize this and put it into position. One downside to ScreenPad Plus is the UI scaling is only up to 125%, and this is 125%, and the fonts, the text, the icons, they still look kind of small. Based on my experience of using this laptop for the past few days, ScreenPad Plus would crash at least once a day, so it will restart automatically. But thankfully, the windows will go back to their previous locations. So it's annoying, but not annoying to the extent that it's a deal breaker. There is also this software feature for productivity with Adobe apps such as Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, Lightroom, Premiere Pro, and After Effects. So when you launch one of those Adobe apps, there will be this customized control panel which will appear on the ScreenPad Plus. On the control panel, there are dials, sliders, toggles, and buttons. So if I press rotate right, you can actually see the image rotate left and right. I can use this dial to zoom in and out. The dials are particularly sensitive, so it's difficult for me to get a precise zoom in this case. And when I'm using Photoshop, I can use the dial to change the brush size. Again, the size of the brush will jump quite quickly with the dial. So it will take some time to get used to using the dial. As for the sliders, the buttons, they work very well. These are the default controls for Adobe Lightroom, and all these are actually customizable. I'll show you how to customize them later. Let me show you the default controls for After Effects, and this is for Photoshop. So when the app is active, the control panel will load automatically. And this is for Adobe Illustrator. And this is for Adobe Premiere. So it's just these 5 apps. This is Adobe Premiere. So there's this dial here to zoom the timeline. And this dial here will just move across the timeline. Depending on your workflow, you may prefer to use the controls here or just use the keyboard shortcuts. To customize the shortcuts on those Adobe control panels, you have to use ASUS Creator Hub software, and this software has some PC management features as well. So here you can choose the different performance modes for the laptop. You can also check out some statistics such as RAM usage, CPU load, temperature, fan load. If you want to color calibrate the display, ASUS recommends you use the i1 display, i1 color calibrator, and here you can create different groups of apps to launch together. So this is where you can customize the control panel for those Adobe apps. These are the 5 Adobe apps you can customize. If you are using some other software, unfortunately you will not be able to create a dedicated control panel for that other software. If you don't want to use the control panel, you can always disable it here. So let's maybe customize the shortcuts here. You can move things around. You can also add buttons or sliders or dials. So let me just add a slider here. Let me add a vertical scroll slider. Now you have to press on this crosshair at the top. If you press at this crosshair in the middle, it will tell you there is no space to place the component, even though there is obviously space. So let's add a vertical scroll here, and you can customize the shortcut here with this drop down box. By the way, the sound that you hear is the bell that always sounds on the first day of the month, and today is the first day of September. You can only choose from the list of pre-programmed shortcuts here. So if you want to use a very specific shortcut that is not listed here, that will not be possible because you cannot create your own keyboard shortcuts. So I'm just going to choose brush size. So now I have the option to adjust brush size using this vertical scroll or use this dial. So depending on which type of interface you prefer, you can just choose the shortcut to match that interface. One downside to this Adobe Control Panel feature is when you have a window here on ScreenPad Plus and you launch the Adobe app, this window will still appear on top of the control panel, which should not be the case. So I'm pretty sure this is a bug or a glitch which can be fixed with software. So meanwhile, while you wait for the software fix, if you want the control panel to appear on top, just minimize everything before you launch the Adobe app. Let's talk about the performance of this laptop. So the 12th Gen Intel i7 processor with 6 performance cores at 2.3 GHz and 8 efficiency cores, together with 16 gigs of RAM and the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3050 graphics card, provides very snappy performance with this laptop. Now you may hear the fans spinning in the background even though I'm not doing anything serious right now. It's because I actually am running some benchmark in the background. Anyway, when it comes to multitasking, graphic design work, editing photos and videos, everything is really smooth with this laptop. Let's see how much time it takes to generate thumbnails with imported photos using Adobe Lightroom Classic. For 100 raw photos, each one at 16 megapixels. That is pretty fast. So the PCIe Gen 4 NVMe SSD has a read speed of 6 GB per second and write speeds of 5 GB per second. Yesterday, while I tested this, it's close to 7 GB and 6 GB, so today it's 1 GB less for some reason. For video editing, the video export time with H.265 for a 4K video project is about 40 to 50% of the length of the project. So if you export a 10-minute project, it's going to take about 4 to 5 minutes, which to me is very fast. This applies to simple cut and join videos with no special effects. User interface looks alright for video editing. This is at 200% UI scaling. So if you want to see more of your palettes, your controls, your timeline, you can scale down the UI at the expense of having everything look smaller, such as the buttons, the text look smaller. This is DaVinci Resolve. This is the quick cut user interface at 200% UI scaling. And this is the edit interface. So the thumbnails, the text, they all look kind of big, so I can actually afford to maybe scale down the UI from 200% to 175 or maybe 150%. It really depends on how comfortable your eyes are at looking at all this user interface. Graphic design is obviously going to work fine. The display is color accurate, it's sharp, so visual creators will definitely enjoy this display. By the way, while recording this segment of me creating the YouTube thumbnail with Photoshop, ScreenPad Plus crashed 3 times, but I wasn't able to capture it on camera. Let's talk about gaming. The NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3050 Ti is a decent graphics card for gaming. With Red Dead Redemption 2, I was able to get at least 45 frames per second with 1080p resolution, so that to me is still very playable. With Hades, I was able to get 120 frames per second, so with Hades it's really smooth. With RDR2, right now it's at 53, 52 FPS, so this is also pretty smooth. And the visual quality of the OLED when it comes to gaming, it's really nice. And with the Zenbook Pro Duo, you can have this extra screen used to your advantage. So here I have the walkthrough for RDR2. Right now I have the laptop connected to my 100 watt GAN charger, and the battery will still drain. So if you want the battery to charge while you're gaming, just use the included ASUS charger. So you can hear the fans spinning at full speed because I'm gaming. One big design change with this 14-inch is ASUS moved the fan exhaust from this side here to the back. There is also fan exhaust here. So with the 15-inch, the fan exhaust is actually here. The Zenbook Pro Duo 15 from 2021, the fan exhaust is here. So when you play with your mouse, your hand will get blasted by hot air. So now the fan exhaust is at the back. That is so much better. This laptop can get really hot when gaming, so I highly recommend you prop up the laptop for better airflow. The heat is mostly concentrated behind at the back, and because the keyboard is pushed forward, this keyboard is actually not that warm. It's just very slightly warm, and if you want to game on this keyboard, you can do so for hours without feeling discomfort. So that's one huge advantage or side advantage of having the keyboard pushed away from the heat. Alright, to conclude, this is a beautiful and powerful laptop with 2 displays for better productivity and multitasking workflows. The colors on these displays look fantastic, so these are definitely good for visual content creators. Some of the downsides relate to ScreenPad Plus, which restarts at least once a day, and there is no way to customize keyboard shortcuts for the Adobe control panels. And when you are using the Adobe control panels with other windows that are already here, the control panel doesn't automatically float to the top, so you have to push it to the top manually. There is subtle grain texture on the OLED display and visual noise with the matte surface LCD. Touchpad cannot be pressed now, and it doesn't use haptics. Battery life is about 5 hours, more or less, depending on your workflow. This Zenbook Pro Duo 14 definitely provides more value compared to the 15-inch from last year, simply because the pricing is significantly lower. So I want to end this review by saying that it is difficult to beat dual display productivity with just a single display. Alright, I hope this review is helpful. If you guys have any questions relating to this laptop, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. See you guys again. Bye.